There we go. All right, let me just share this. I'm excited to have everybody on. Okay, great. All right, awesome. Well, I'm excited to have everybody on today. Thank you very much. Let me just deal with this small technical issue here. Okay. Okay. All right. So just want to welcome everybody. I'm Dept Ramos, your councilwoman for the 14th District. We are on Zoom and also Facebook Live on my Councilwoman Odette Ramos page. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. Before I introduce our guests, I want to just have a couple of updates. As everybody probably knows already, the Pfizer vaccine is approved for our little ones, which we're very excited about. Already the pharmacies are totally overloaded with people making appointments. We are waiting guidance from the city health department as to how they're going to be distributing the vaccine for our little ones. That I'm sure will happen very soon because it was just approved the other day. So everybody will get vaccinated. It's just a matter of when. So, you know, be patient, and we'll make sure that everybody will have a lot of we will have a lot of opportunities to get people vaccinated. So we've got a lot of people that have been working on it in the 14th district and our staff as well. Some of you have also seen that there's a new traffic pattern on 33rd and Hillen. A little confusing. Be patient, it will get better. There's a grant that the city got called a NACTO grant, National Association of something or other, and they're for traffic calming to make it easier to get into Lake Montebello. So it will be great when it's done. It's unfortunate that it's not quite done yet, and hopefully it will be done this week. They'll be changing the lights, there'll be a mural, there'll be traffic calming there to make it easier for folks to get in and out of the lake. So should be really great. So so we're very excited to have with us the awesome team, part of the awesome team, because the whole team is pretty awesome. We've got, you know, the A team here from Recs and Parks, the Department of Recreation and Parks from Baltimore City. We have a ton of parks in our district and all over the city. And I just wanted to educate folks on exactly, you know, what Rec and Parks does, and ask some specific questions about some of the things that we're concerned about in my district. So very excited to have Tim Almaguer here. Thank you so much, Tim, for being here. Earl Johnson, who is our liaison in the 14th district, and Charlie Murphy, who's from Forestry. So thanks all of you for being here. Do you want to take a second to introduce yourselves, Tim?
Sure. So I'll start off. I'm Tim Almaguer, the Chief of Community Engagement and Strategic Partnerships for Baltimore City Recreation and Parks. Earl?
Hi, my name is Earl Johnson. I am the Community Liaison for District 14, but I also have Districts 1, 2, 3, and 11.
So we all keep you very busy, I'm sure.
Charlie?
Hey, Charlie.
Hi, my name is Charlie Murphy. I run the Tree Baltimore program, which is the community forestry arm of the Forestry Division, which is housed in Department of Recreation and Parks.
Cool. Well, that's great. And I appreciate all of you for being here. Charlie, just as a side note, I had a tree taken down in front of my house last year. We got the stump finally removed, but I picked up a tree from the Grove Center. So I'm good. And it's a wonderful southern oak so I'll let you know that, so you all don't have to bother coming over to get a tree to put a tree in. took care of it. But I know, so we'll talk a lot about that piece. So Tim, can you just do a quick overview of the department itself and what it does and all the wonderful things that the department does?
Sure. I mean, that's probably an hour worth of information right there. But just real quickly, I mean, my background is actually in biology. I kind of stumbled into the park world through actually Bureau of Land Management, working out west, and then coming back to Baltimore, kind of putting my wagon with a bunch of crazy little people over at Butchers Hill, Patterson Park area back in 1999. And then that's where I actually originally met you, working with our strategic partnership, the strategic plan process. I left there in 2011 as the executive director, completely, which has been amazing to be able to form and create and develop and grow an organization like that. And now I'm with Baltimore City Recreation Parks, which has been a treasure in itself. So with Baltimore City Recreation Parks, obviously, our mission is to improve health and wellness in Baltimore through maintaining quality recreational opportunities, preserving parks, natural resources, and promoting fun, active lifestyles. And we do that through conservation, health and wellness, and social equity. When it comes to what we do, we have 4,800 acres of parks, 262 parks. Charlie will tell you it's probably 150,000 trees, 120 some playgrounds, numerous dog parks, historical structures like the observatory, or that cutie behind you there, the wonderful mansion in Clifton Park. So there's numerous things that we do, and we kind of do that Herculean with 300 full-time staff and a cadre, probably close to over 500 part-time and seasonal employees. And we do this kind of a shoestring budget as compared to other budgets in Baltimore City. Nationally, we're considered low to moderate in a way of its per capita spending in recreation and parks. So we're small but mighty, and we do try to do all this as much as possible. And what we do often have too is having community partners, friends groups, stakeholders, donors, those kinds of people to help us along the way where we kind of have some issues or we have some need for a gap funding or a gap programming or whatever that is, volunteerism. So that's what kind of Earl does as well. We have a new volunteer Maryland position, Ashanti Jones, which hopefully everyone gets to know is our new volunteer coordinator. So that's kind of how we maximize our strength in that. Our division, Earl is one of our wonderful community liaisons, and we're a part of community engagement and strategic partnerships. Our director, Mr. Moore, kind of saw this coming into our organization. And as somebody from the outside, I saw it myself. To connect with our department previous to this director, it was hard to kind of get over the wall. So you're just throwing pebbles over the wall and hoping to get somebody's attention to get something done. So to be more proactive and more intentional about it, the community engagement division was created to kind of be that, let's call it a Walmart greeter. So you have an issue, have a concern, you contact Earl, you contact myself, and we kind of guide you through this, what can be an arduous process, or get you in front of the right people to answer your questions or solve your problems or enlist some help. So that's exactly what we do. We're kind of the stewards that get you past through the gates, beyond the wall, to meet and solve your problems. And so that's kind of why our division. Part of our division also is we also have Felicia Jones, who's our grant specialist. So we're bringing in external funding through federal and state funders, some private funders that can help us, kind of maximize our budget. Let's just put it that way. So that's what we have that. We have a volunteer coordination part of it as well. So we kind of do a lot of different things. So that's our division and our department. I would say that under Mr. Moore, we are, maximizing, and we're trying to grow in a very intentional and very professional way. Our department is accredited. The National Rec and Parks Association accreditation process, kind of like a university would have. So we were accredited in 2016, and we were recently reaccredited. So we're doing something right.
So the department itself has, your division, also parks maintenance, because we have a ton of parks in our city, which are wonderful. And then we have forestry, but then there's also the facilities maintenance, so like rec centers, and other types of facilities, and you know,
Kind of give
so
you a quick org chart. I mean, so there's the director, right? And there's the chief of staff, Jasia, and then it goes into 3 different houses. There's the administrative part, which we're kind of underneath, as well as, fiscal, risk management, all the boring things. And then you got the fun thing over here, which is recreation. So they do all the rec centers, therapeutic recreation, seniors programming, pools, all that stuff. And then parks has the other fun job of taking care of all of our parks, forestry, facilities, and maintenance. So that's how our system is kind of broken up.
okay, got it. I appreciate that. I have 2 rec centers in my district, Coldstream and Rita Church being the newest one, that we're all very, very proud of. And so I think, I've got a lot of people with questions around parks, but we get at least a call a day on forestry items. So if you don't mind, I wanted to start with both Tim and Charlie. There are people who, it's a complex issue, right? Because there are trees that are just super healthy, but maybe a limb or 2 needs to be trimmed. There are trees that are super healthy and the roots are going all over the place. There are trees that have been already cut down, and there's a lot of the stump needs to be removed. Forestry sometimes has to come in and deal with storm damage. So there's kind of all of that. And so so I know that there was a backlog of, I know there's a backlog. So Charlie, talk a little bit about forestry, or Tim, or either of you, and sort of how things are going, and what's the best process for people to, people call 311 and then they call me. So
I brought the
yeah.
ringer because I will tell you, and Errol will attest to this, is that I believe in going to the subject matter expert. I'm not going to fake it. And so I can bring in somebody way smarter than I am about this. I will do it at a heartbeat. So I bring to you, Charlie, who is that person?
Great.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So forestry is probably the biggest outlier of everything that Rec and Parks has to offer. That is because we not only deal with all the trees in our parklands, but also all the trees along the streets. So basically our fingerprints are all over the city. So that can be a bit difficult to manage, especially being in one of the smaller departments within the city, and being one of the smaller divisions within that department. So as you mentioned, yeah, we do deal with a lot of different things. Typically, we're dealing with SRs, which is when folks call into 311 and put in a request for the tree in front of their house or down the block or wherever in their local park, etc. But we do have to obviously deal when large storms come on. We have somebody called a duty officer who is on call essentially 24/7, and that's a weekly thing that kind of rotates throughout forestry. But that's hopefully that's a rare occurrence where we actually have to deal with storm duty. But it is one of those things that typically when we're telling people a date or time and when we're anticipating their job to be done, usually we add the little caveats of unless there's serious weather concerns or cars are blocking our access to remove a tree. So those are our 2 little caveats whenever we give somebody a date. But so I won't talk too much about the storms, but so the main way that forestry operates is the SR system. So that is dependent on you all as residents of Baltimore to let us know where the problems are. And you do not have to be a tree expert by any means to call in a tree to 311, because when you call 311, you are basically putting in a service request for a tree inspection. And we have certified folks. There are currently, I believe, 6, with a couple of people helping out and covering the different zip codes within Baltimore, and they will go out and inspect the tree. So you can call in and simply say, the tree in front of my house looks bad, or I don't know what's wrong with the tree in front of my house, please take a look. And somebody will go out and take a look. If something does need to happen, whether it's a pruning, a removal, or as Councilwoman Ramos mentioned, stumps is a big one that has to happen. A work order is created within our system, and then that gets put into our queue. If there are serious problems, that's where we may prioritize or bump something up if we consider it a serious safety concern to the constituents of Baltimore. That said, as mentioned previously, there is a backlog of work orders. Currently, we're in about a year backlog. That being said, additional funding was given to forestry, or is in the process of being given to forestry. And our goal is actually to knock down and almost completely eliminate the backlog of pruning and removal SRs by May of 2020. That does not include stumps. That is just pruning and removal work orders that we currently have in our system. But the goal is to completely eliminate that by the end of the fiscal year. The stumps will probably get about half of those out of the way in that same time period. Now, the one thing I will say about stumps is if you are somebody who has a stump and it's preventing you from planting a tree, please do reach out to us. I put my contact information in the chat. If you go to treebaltimore.org, don't get confused. We're still part of Rec and Parks. We just have our own website because we work so closely with so many different community groups and nonprofits that our website is constantly updating. And we were really annoying the one person that controls all of Rec and Parks websites. So we kind of got told to go off on our own and create something. So feel free to reach out through that. But we do prioritize stumps if they're getting a new tree, because we look at that as a overall benefit for the city versus some people that may not want a tree replacing their stump. That will still get done, but it is in that backlog or queue of stumps. So
Right.
if you are interested.
Yeah, Lisa
Okay.
in the chat said that she had a stump for 3 years that she's been working to try to deal with. So Lisa, if you can send to Earl with the SR, if you still have it, that would be great, because hopefully we can get you into that backlog and get that done before May of 2022. But that's so exciting that there's some money coming in. I think there were many conversations and phone calls that I think many of my colleagues and I have had to try to get through the backlog of the work orders. So that's very exciting. And so we'll just keep continuing to have people dial 311, but new 311s won't be included in that because you're looking to try to deal with the backlog, unless it's like an emergency or something, right?
Correct, but we will be still chipping away at those as well. So the goal is that by the end of the fiscal year, we won't have quite the backlog of a year. It probably would be more like a few months, but that's to be determined. Obviously, it's up to weather and trees. I can't really control too much. But yes, absolutely. And the only other things I really need to mention, and just for FYI for people with stumps, the reason there is a massive stump backlog is because 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, when we had quite a few budget cuts, we were just basically told stumps are not a serious risk to the citizens of Baltimore. So please just cut that out of your budget and keep doing removals and prunings. And so since then, it's just been a constant catch-up game. But also we didn't really know where they all were. And when we had that cut, all the SRs got erased. So it's not like we kept the old SRs of stumps. And so that's a problem. So we actually do know where all the stumps are because we have a street tree inventory that tells us where they all are. But as far as how old they are, or how far back they go, I do apologize every time somebody sends me an email about stump. But again, if you're interested in getting a tree planted where that stump is, I will make sure that we get you on the list for a spring planting and get that stump out before then. And then, so finally, just planting. There's 2 ways that we plant within forestry. One is through our contract. I don't know if anyone read the brew today or yesterday. That contract, unfortunately, is on hold for this fall, but we're hoping everything will be fine for this spring. And we'll probably double up the number of trees we plant this spring because we already had 1,300 locations for planting this fall that will be planted in the spring. So we'll probably plant close to 3,000 in the spring, hopefully. But so that's one way if you're interested and you don't really want to get your hands dirty, or you don't really want to get into the game with trees too much, but you would like one, you can fill out a street tree request form on our website. And then the other is the community forestry side of things. So we have folks like Blue Water Baltimore, Baltimore Tree Trust, a lot of different Friends of Parks groups or community groups that have gone through our tree keepers training or weed warriors training. Both are trainings that we offer for free to train folks. And once you become certified as a tree keeper, you kind of learn the ropes on how to order trees through us. And you can do a community planting within your own neighborhood, even if it's a few trees on your block. Or Canton, I think, is doing 60 trees this weekend. We provided the trees, the mulch, the stakes, and they provided the residents of the neighborhood that want to plant and care for the trees. So there's two ways of doing it. You can either get your hands dirty and meet some neighbors, or you can just fill out a form and get a tree placed in front of your house. So those are the two options. And that's all I really have for forestry, unless there's more
You have
questions.
the link in the chat for the tree, or you could send it to me as well.
So check out that website. I mean,
Oh, I got it. It's right there. Okay. Mhm.
put it in there because it's just a fantastic website. There's some everything you talked about, it's in the download section. And I think, to Charlie's credit and Forestry's credit, and always remember that Tree Baltimore is Baltimore City Rec and Parks.
Mhm.
They think there's two different organizations, but that Charlie is Tree Baltimore and he's Rec and Parks. And so it's the same people. So
Yeah, Charlie, I had a question about if somebody wanted to just go out and buy their own tree and not, wait for the city. Isn't there an approved list of trees that you have? Because we don't want trees that go out, the roots go out anymore. We want trees that the root ball
Yeah.
goes down.
So we practice right tree, right place, which is a mantra that's kind of come about in the last 15 to 20 years. Talking roots, we're talking trees that make messes. There's also something that you would learn about quite a bit in our Weed Warriors program, which is invasives. And these are trees that you can buy at Home Depot. You can buy at nurseries that aren't really holistic and local, and they can become very problematic. So they have the ability, because they're invasive or they've come from other areas in the world, they don't have anything keeping them in check. So they can produce a lot of seeds, or they can have a lot of sprouts out of their roots, and they can really kind of take over our local parks. So we really want to make sure that people aren't planting those. So yes, we do have a specific list, but if you ever have any questions of like, hey, I found this, I really am interested in it, would this be okay? If it's not on that list, feel free to email us, and we're always happy to talk trees and people that want to plant more in their own, for sure. And we get to update our inventory. If you let us know what you're planting and where you're planting it, it can get added to our street tree inventory, which on the website, really cool map. You can literally go to your address and click on the tree in front of your house, and it'll tell you what species it is and what size it is. So do check that out on our website as well.
I put the tree list in the chat too. I think it's the same one from 2013. That's what was on the website.
Yeah, we haven't updated it in a little bit, but we are working on that, I think, this winter. I also put in the street tree request form as a link as well.
Right,
Yeah.
and Lisa was asking about the fruit trees. I think there are some fruit trees that are in that list, cherry trees, specific cherry trees.
So the cherries on the list are more flowering than fruit. We do plant fruit trees. There's actually a small local nonprofit called Baltimore Orchard Project. And we partner with them to plant larger orchards in our different parks. So if you're interested in planting a few larger fruit trees in your park, we would point you to them because they have a lot more expertise than us. We just order the trees for them, and they kind of run the community engagement and planning and organizing stage of that because they're way more in the know-how. As I got brought in as quote unquote the forestry expert, there are people way more in the game when it comes to fruit trees than us. So Baltimore Orchard Project is a great way to start if you're trying to do that. We do offer fruit trees at our spring giveaway. These are native ones, so you're not going to get like apples and pears, but you'll get things like native persimmons, some figs, service berries, and there's a couple others. Pawpaws is another one. And we do currently have our giveaway for the fall, but we don't offer fruit trees in the fall because they don't do as well when you plant them in the fall. So if you're interested in a tree for your yard, again, treebaltimore.org. Our online store for reservations is open through the weekend, and then the giveaway is next Wednesday, so a week from today. And you literally just drive up. If you've reserved trees, you tell us your name. We say you ordered these, yep, and then we put them in the trunk for you, and you're good to go. So it's very easy, very contactless, very COVID friendly. So.
And our tree canopy goal is still 40%. Is that right?
It is until someone tells me it's not. Yes, absolutely. So this goal was made up in 2007 when we thought our tree canopy was 20%. And so for folks that don't know, the tree canopy is if a bird were to fly over the city and look down at the city, it's the percent covered by branches and leaves. And so in 2007, we believed that our canopy was 20%. The goal was to double it to 40%. There was also a paper out by a national nonprofit that stated that 40% was what a healthy tree canopy looked like for urban areas. They've actually backtracked that in the last few years to be more equitable with their idea of how to do that. Because if you look at canopy, if all your canopy is on in a couple of neighborhoods and not in others, it doesn't make a whole ton of sense. So it's better to have a lower overall canopy as long as the canopy is spread throughout the city. So that's kind of our goal with our planting efforts, is to target these neighborhoods that are extremely low canopy, where trees will make the most difference, and really get the community engagement and involvement and plant in those neighborhoods. So you may see folks in your neighborhoods like Blue Water Baltimore or Baltimore Tree Trust, or our city contractor planting in your neighborhoods. That's because we're targeting these neighborhoods, and we believe that trees are going to make a massive difference, not only to that neighborhood, but to the city as a whole.
Yeah, and I think we just need to continue to communicate the message that these new trees are not, they're not going into your pipes. They're not, some people just, the whole tree root and pipe thing is interesting because it's, if there's a crack in the pipe, then sure, the tree will go there. But if there's no crack in the pipe, it's not going to go there. So that is something that I do hear. Some people don't want trees because they don't want the pipes, but if you plant them properly and they're the proper tree, then it should be fine.
Absolutely. That goes back to that mantra of right tree, right place. So that was initially started with don't plant trees that are going to get very big under power lines. And if you've ever seen like the field goal post trees that have been cut out around the wires, that was the main reason for that. But what we also take that into heart with urban forestry is, yes, there are problems with sidewalks, there are problems with pipes that are old and falling apart. And as trees get bigger, those will become problems. And so when we look at planting trees, we utilize misutility. We look where all these different potential underground and overhead problems potentially could be, and pick a specific or a proper tree for that location. So if there is potentially a water meter close that looks like it's maybe old and potentially could be aging, we don't plant a tree that has very invasive roots or larger roots that are going to be causing those types of issues. So those are all the different things that we're thinking about. And honestly, I graduated from school in 2008, and the school I went to did not offer urban forestry as a degree. So that's how new urban forestry really is in the landscape of thinking about trees and how it affects the urban area. So when we have these 80-year-old trees, no one was thinking 80 years later, in present day, we would have these problems like trees growing into the wires or trees growing into the pipes and things like that. So now over the last 15 to 20 years, we've really made an asserted effort to really pick the appropriate tree for the appropriate locations.
Thank you. Yes, I've had to assign one of my staff to just parks and trees because we get so many, sort of like I have one, she does a lot of other things, because the way that this work is all duties as assigned, but she does her verbal work and then parks and trees, just like Gabe does the legislative stuff and DOT. So we have all of that, and we had DOT a couple weeks ago, so that was good. Well, thanks for that. I think we're hopefully on our way to that 40%, and I'm glad that we're actually looking at trees being a solution to the heat desert issue and to the the trees, the big older ones that we have here in Charles Village are really amazing, and they go, over the road, and it looks wonderful. Some of the challenges around, being able to see the sidewalk and things like that, people are actually coming up with really incredible alternatives with stringing lights from their house to the tree, and there you go. So sidewalk is lit. Hey, another cool reason to have a tree. So there's all kinds of opportunities there, and very excited to have our southern oak grow quickly, because they definitely grow quickly. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. The next piece that I wanted to sort of circle back on was around the parks. So parks in my district, I have Wyman Park Dell, Stony Run, the Clifton Park. Lake Montebello is not considered a park. It's a DPW facility. And so that would be a separate conversation with them, but they maintain everything. They do the trees, they do the mowing, they do all of that. So even on the side that's near the school, the DPW does all that. And then the other piece is the, Clifton Park as well as our big jewel. And so I'm curious to know, and I may know some of this too, in terms of, and we also have a little pocket parks in different places, like Montpelier and 30th Street, and the little park on Chestnut and Chestnut Hill and Frisbee Street. And, there's some little teeny parks here and there. But, how's it going with, now that you're going to get this other money? Hopefully it's not, I'm glad it's for forestry, but I know that we want to be able to maintain our parks as well. And I think Rec and Parks has really done a great job. There are times where I snap a photo and send it to Earl and say, wait a second, what happened to the mowing here? Just looking at, for instance, Clifton Park, there's a lot that's about to happen in Clifton Park, right? We have this amazing mansion that is being restored slowly but surely. If you haven't taken a tour, everybody should take that tour. Morgan State University is, vying for the old Lake Clifton School, which is going to change the landscape of the park and the use of the park, which I think is going to be good. We're getting a bike lane and a pedestrian walkway on St. Lo Drive at some point. So that'll connect, folks to downtown a little bit more, because there's a bike lane on Washington Boulevard coming. So it's been very exciting. I also know that Clifton Park is divided into 3 parts, right? There's the golf course, which is maintained by the golf people. There's the part by each school that's maintained by the school system, and then everything else is Rec and Parks. So, that must be a little challenging to try to coordinate with everybody to make sure it all gets done. The golf people maintain their part pretty well. It's sometimes we don't always see the others. But are there any other plans or anything that you know of for Clifton Park that we should be aware of? Well, the city garden is also the city. What's it called? Is that what it's called? The city garden is in Clifton Park as well. Which is pretty cool. It's by the gardener's cottage.
Right, well, and that's being restored. It's been stabilized. That's the big thing. That's a beautiful old building, the gingerbread gardener's cottage that was ready to fall.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful building. Yeah.
Visions to kind of transform that into something, which is a great idea. No, but to your point, I think one thing we learned from COVID, if possible, any silver lining could be put to it, was the innate need and want for people to go into their public spaces, those urban open public spaces, to get outside of the house, to do something, to recreate, to breathe air, to touch a tree. So it was very, very important. But at the same time, everyone came to the parks, and it did increase the amount of maintenance and trash and needs and fixing benches more so. So thank you for that, for keeping up with it. So I will tell you, I'm talking to Ron Rudisil, they're cutting those parks, Clifton Park specifically, on a 7-day cycle. So every week that's getting cut. Obviously we had some procurement issues in the beginning of the season that kind of, delayed that from happening, and hopefully that doesn't happen again next year. We're praying on that. So we can get back onto a weekly cycle for that. The other part too is that at least 3 times a week, there's eyes on those parks. And so there's somebody going through that park, making sure those things are being taken care of. They're being inspected. And then on the trash side, if they're, as long as they're in the cans, sanitation is picking up those trash cans at those every day. So, and if they're not, we need to know that so that we can talk to DPW about making sure that happens. Now, to your point, in Lake Clifton, it's an interesting park. We have Rita Church on one end with a football field across it. There's the school and what happens over in that bowl, the softball diamonds and the football. And we're trying to reimagine what that could look like too. We would like to put in a more structured multi-purpose field in there as well. Then we have potentially Morgan State, Civic Works in the mansion, the golf course, and then the rest of it. So there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of stakeholders and a lot of different groups in that. And we have to figure out a way how we can cohesively work together. So all those wonderful kids that go to Rita Church, how are they going to get access to or some kind of resources through Morgan State? How do they get to go maybe the first tee at the golf course to learn how to play golf in that space? There's a lot of potential cohesion in all that. We just got to figure out a way to do it.
Well, and we got the new surfacing of the tennis courts, which was pretty amazing. My husband, John, was born and raised in Baltimore, and he used to play tennis there. And then when the opening last year, around this time, the opening last year of the tennis courts was the first time I learned about pickleball. I had no idea that pickleball was a thing. I didn't even know anything about it. And but it's sort of the smaller version of tennis. So people with bad knees and stuff can play pickleball. But it's actually pretty popular. Those courts are used all the time, which I think is really awesome. One thing that I think we all want to work, and Lisa mentioned here, Mother's Garden. Mother's Garden is amazing, and that is very much volunteer maintained. Lots of people that are very great stewards of the garden. But also, I'd like to try to figure out, in addition to the lane, the bike and pedestrian lane that's going to be on St. Lo Drive, Indian Head Road is also very speedy, and there's no sidewalks there. So as to try to cross to other places in the park as a pedestrian is actually pretty dangerous. And so I know that there's the Clifton Park master plan that has to be updated because I think it's pretty old. But there's a lot of conversation around how do we make these spaces more so that we can have, I'm a runner, I run all over the district. And when I go into Clifton Park, I have to be very specific about when I'm going. When during COVID, nobody was around. It was great. But, in terms of the roads, but now there's traffic all the time. And without a sidewalk there, it's very difficult. So, but it is, I think, one of our best parks. And I think it's, there are lots of people who use it, but I try to encourage more people to go and use it because it's pretty amazing. There's also like water issues here and there that are challenging for all of us, but that's what happens when you build a school on a lake. So I don't know how that happened, but that's what happened. So yeah, Clifton Park is really amazing. We don't have a formal friends group there, which I think will be helpful. Friends of Stony Run and Wyman Park Dell, those are friends groups there that have been very active in those parks. And so, Wyman Park Dell is very well used. Lots of music and movie nights and things like that. There's also the relatively new Harriet Tubman Grove to reimagine the space where the Confederate statue was. So it's pretty exciting that, so many people have taken, I've been to many cleanups. I do a lot of cleanups over at Wyman Park Dell. And then Stony Run is having a lot of work done to it, right? It's got the, Charlie, you've been on those calls. The stormwater management into the Stony Run has to be redone, and DPW did most of it. There's still more to go. And a lot of coordination with Rec and Parks in order to actually make that happen. It's great to have those resources in the parks, because when you actually in the bottom in the Stony Run, you can't see any houses around. So it's like, wow, are we in the city still? Yeah, you're in the city. And actually, I was doing English Ivy event with Councilman Dorsey on the weekend. We were on my side of Harford Road in the park area. I guess it's called Hall Springs, where the playground is. And so I hadn't explored up there as much as I should. So I'm going to go back over there and explore those trails, because that's pretty amazing, you know, that there's that resource. Or if you wanted to just go for a hike and didn't want to go 3 hours out, you could just go to, you know, this area right here on Harford and Argonne Drive, and there you go. There's trails and it's great.
Down to Armistead Gardens, frankly. You
Yeah.
know, you,
Yeah. No, so that, I mean, that's the thing. We've got all the, you know, if you go on the west side of the city, there's, you know, Leakin Park and some of the other parks where there's the same thing. You just go in and there's trails everywhere, and you don't have to get 3-hour drives to get out there. So, yeah, but any other updates on some of those parks? I think I probably have some of those, but
I mean, back to trails. I mean, we have 25 miles plus of trails in Baltimore City. There's
cool.
Jones Falls, there's Quinn's Falls, and obviously Herring Run as well. So we got a lot of those. You know, when it
yeah,
comes
the
to
park I was just talking about was off the Herring Run. Yeah.
and when it comes to friends groups, so that's part of our bailiwick and community engagement. So we're actually trying to reimagine our friends programs, but a part of that too is capacity building. So to your point, you know, we have, of course, my favorite, Friends of Patterson Park, but you know, why don't we have a Friends of Clifton Park, and how do we make that happen? That's a matter of capacity building. How to bring, I think Gia used to be a part of that back in the day, and so we're trying to, how do we recoalesce all that? And then also finding friends groups in those smaller pocket parks, those, you know, concerned citizens and volunteers have been doing this for the past umpteen million years. How do we codify them and help them get resources, or help them get volunteer hours and tools and things like that? So, you know, having come from a friends group where I made a lot of mistakes, I can show people what not to do and guide them in a sufficient way. And so can Earl and Charnice and Tony are a part of that group. Yeah, so I want to go back to Rita Church too. I mean, so Rita Church, I put in the chat an event before I forget, an event that's happening. We have like a fall festival happening this weekend there on Saturday. So there's a
Right.
fly-
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get the final flyer, so but we'll do social media on it, because I didn't put it in my newsletter, but we'll do social media on the fall festival. That's at noon, right? 1 o'clock.
1 to 5, yeah. And so also, so you have Coldstream and you got Rita Church, and so I don't want to be remiss. I mean, we're talking a lot of parks, but we have a lot of recreational activities happening in your parks as well. You know, whether it be ball fields and programming, but those rec centers. And so at Coldstream, there's karate there, there's dancing there, there's mentoring, after school program. Same thing with Rita Church, a lot of adult and youth basketball and after school programming there. There's senior programs there. So, I mean, I can put it into you go to our website under programming, you can identify any program you'd be interested in, and then you can register online or on site.
So the seniors are allowed back into the rec centers now?
Still a
'Cause I
senior
think-
program on there. I'm not sure the date and time it is coming up, but I know they have it or moving
They
toward.
do. They have, both Coldstream and Rita Church have a the Wednesdays and Fridays or something like that in the afternoons for the ladies. And so I think it was this month that they were allowing them back in, which is good.
Yeah.
So that is good. So you know, and then Clifton, the Rita Church is right there by the pool, the
Mhm.
Clifton Pool. Clifton Park is so humongous that there's 1, 2, 3 schools. There's all kinds of, you know, playing fields and the pool. And I have to say, since Druid Hill has been closed, it looks amazing. Druid Park is going to be amazing, that pool. So a lot of people have moved in and worked and used the Clifton Pool and just love it. The lifeguards are amazing. The system to get online and call had been really great. And so people have really, really enjoyed being able to the country club also what got moved to Clifton, and the people that are doing country club and the swimming really enjoyed it. So I'm really excited about, the prospect of Clifton getting much more well used as a park. But then there's also the Charm City, what do we say? The Charm City, what's it called? Charm City Games. We had
Yes.
them last summer.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. I mean, we have these wonderful kids that are very talented in their sports. So how do we, because, especially in Baltimore, we're very east side, west side, north and south. How do we break those bridges? And oftentimes, almost like going back to the original Olympics, Sparta and Athens, how do you get these people together? Well, you have an Olympics, you said, you know what, we don't care about boundary. We're going to come together in healthy competition and have some fun together. And I know as a soccer coach, as a soccer dad, as an ex-soccer player, that's how you do it. You kids that you would normally never meet, you meet there on a playing field, whether it's basketball, soccer, tennis, or whatever that sport is. So again, it was Mr. Moore came in and said we need to do this. So we started the first year, then COVID happened, and so we were able to have it again this year, and it's a great experience. I mean, it was obviously not as robust as it would have been if we didn't have a pandemic, but it was great. It was great to have kids from throughout Baltimore playing in a very competitive and friendly way to kind of represent their district, represent their rec council or whatever they were doing. So it was great.
Yeah, some of the teams were from their center, and some of them were actually representing their district. And I was like, oh, I got to get a team. I got to get my kids together and get a team, and because we could do well representing. So,
As a city, I think we're moving in that direction. The vision. So, if you're a kid in the United States waking up and you're 11 years old, you're kind of this rites of passage. You're going to join a little league team or a football team or a basketball team and get a part of a larger league. Well, I will tell you, that doesn't happen always in Baltimore City. So how can we recapitulate that? What should be innately so the UNESCO came up with the main tenets of being a child, the civil rights of a child, and the number one was the right to play. And we have to create that same kind of idea. And this is, so we have to create, this kind of all gets into that, at a local level, how do we, through recreational activities and opportunities, how do we, get kids together, teach them a sport, make them feel empowered to use their bodies in a productive way, to do something, to sense of accomplishment and learning. And then at the local level, but then we have to, larger, system-wide city level, how do we create an internal city league? And I think we're moving in that direction. We're doing it around basketball, we're slowly doing it around soccer, but also, I have two daughters, 5 and 8-year-old, and recreation in general, there's a bifurcation that happens around 11 between co-ed sports and then individualized male and female sports. We need to do a better job on the women's side, so it's softball, it's volleyball, and then focusing on some of those opportunities for young women.
yeah, I played soccer for club soccer and then school soccer, and then I played basketball for school and ran track for school. But I know there's also a track. Like my daughter, I think I want to get her into track because she's super fast. And I think that there's a track league starting at some point. So yeah, having these opportunities is going to be really important. And I'm really glad that Rec and Parks is really taking that on, to have the leagues, not just, centered around the rec centers, but centered around just the sport. And how do you then have the opportunity to play? And there's private ones as well. I mean, I've got Northwood Baseball in my district, which I'm very excited about. And the field issue is a large one. We're trying to get all that coordinated. Earl gets all those emails. And so, but they've got a baseball league that they've had for years. The people that are coaching now were kids playing in the league when, in the Northwood Baseball League. That's kind of how it happens in Baltimore, where, if you grew up here and you stay, then you're going to be back involved in those leagues, and you're going to have your, you're going to have the kids involved in those leagues. So there's the private leagues, and then having the opportunity for the young people at the city level, would be great. And then of course, then they might go and play for their schools or whatever. More of the schools are, there's certain sports in most schools, so it's not for everybody, but yeah, so it's great. I mean, we have such great opportunities. Our parks are amazing. Our rec centers, some of our schools, like Hampton Elementary, they don't have a rec center in Hampton, but the school built this field that they use for soccer because they have a paved playground. So they built the thing for soccer, which is great. The kids could use it for, playing soccer or whatever they're playing, which is, it's really wonderful. So I think some of the schools have had to adapt if they don't have a rec center, that they're going to adapt, as well to be part of that, pattern for the
Those are called mini pitches. And so actually we
mini
have
pitch. Yeah.
work through, so we have a great partnership with US Soccer Foundation. And we actually have 3 of those in our inventory. We have one at Betty Hyatt, the DeSoto Park, and Faring Baybrook. And so that one was another one that we kind of worked with schools and US Soccer to kind of make that love connection for that to happen. But no, those are great ways to repurpose parking lots and, tennis courts that aren't being used or haven't been used, or basketball courts, or whatever kind of empty space. You can kind of create that little mini pitch or that mini soccer experience. And actually, we have a partnership going on with the Capitals now, under $395 by the stadium next to Solo Gibbs Park. They're going to put a multi-purpose court in there too. So,
Cool.
something to think about. If you ever have, unutilized space, how can that be reimagined or repurposed for, a recreational opportunity?
Oh, I had no idea that it was a thing. I just thought that somebody thought about it and it went into Hamden's parking lot, but that's really cool. That's really great, especially since there are, there are some schools that just have parking lots and lots they're not grass, they can't, or they've tried grass and it's hard to maintain. But having that little mini park might actually be a good fit. I didn't know. See, I learned something. This job learn something new every day. I learn a lot every day. So no, it's really wonderful. Well, this has been a really great, conversation. Well, one thing we didn't get to that is a thorn in all of our sides is the unleashed dog issue. But we're trying to work these out. I know that rec and parks aren't rec and parks trying to do more formal dog parks now, or not yet, or we don't know yet.
So I'll tell you an anecdote. So I was at a City Parks Alliance conference many years ago, and we were on a tour on a bus, and there must have been 50 rec and parks professionals throughout the country. And of course, there was one new graduate student, just started her semester, and she says, in the middle of the bus, goes, "What does everybody think about dog parks?" And the whole bus went, "Oh God." And so it is the third rail of rec and parks, because I have a dog and I love my dog, but I have my parks and I love my parks. So and there's a lot of, I went through this with Patterson Park, and then ultimately one was created, by repurposing, utilizing a tennis court and turning that into a dog park. Has the off-leash dog issue changed? No, not at all. But there is a dog park, and there's now off leash. So there's a lot of discussion about this, and I think it is, a come to Jesus moment where we actually have to sit down intentionally and think through all this. Look at some best practices. Prospect Park does it. They have off leash dog hours. Howard County has them. Anne Arundel County has it. How do they manage those? And it's managed in a way that is enforcement. And we are not there yet. I gotta be honest with you, but it's something we have to talk as a department, like what's the vision. And where we do have dog parks, I will tell you, our department is not going to manage that dog park. We often hand that over to see, there's a dog right there, and
There's Charlie's got his dog right there.
I'm gonna call Pluto in a minute. So yeah, so we actually
it's a very big deal in my district. I have requests for dog parks. I have a controversy in Stony Run with an informal dog park there with people doing off leash in other places which they shouldn't be. I have, obviously, when the Y closed its field for renovation, that caused a big, so it's an issue that we've got to figure out. And I've heard the same thing. If we put a formal fenced in, that's fine, but people are, if without enforcement, they're still going to do off leash elsewhere. And so I think we're going to have to put some more resources into enforcement, or something, because it's a very, very tough issue.
I will tell you,
That
the friends of Passion Park, and I would say this, we do not hate dogs. It's not that we hate dogs. It's that we want to make sure that everybody can use that space in a safe and healthy and manageable way, so no one gets hurt and everyone can enjoy that park. And all parks are dog parks, and just have to be on a leash, or they're in a fenced in area that's called a dog park at this point, until we figure out another way.
Yeah, I think we would have people on all sides interested in that conversation. We're putting, actually, for the members of the public, we're putting a work group together around the Stony Run issue of the unleashed dogs. And I had to do some internal work first before putting that group together. So I hope to do that prior to the next Wyman Park meeting. So at least we have one meeting, but it's a factor in, the quality of our parks, and, the safety that people feel being able to go into a park without having a dog come and,
If you want to drag,
eat their picnic or whatever, so.
no,
Yeah.
I mean, and I agree, and it happens, people running in the park, they get chased or whatever. And there's a need to exercise your dog. I completely get it. But if you want to drag us into that conversation, please feel free, because we've done a lot of research. We've looked at best practice.
Earl's right in that conversation. Don't you worry.
Exactly. So we have a ton of information and ton of contacts, and say, this is how this city does it. This is what Houston does. This is da, da, da. So feel free to.
We'll definitely be putting that together. Earl, did you want to add anything?
Not to change the subject, but Charlie, there's a question for you on the Facebook chat. They wanted to know, what is a street tree? I gave a basic explanation, but maybe you have something more sophisticated than I have.
What is a street tree is the question?
Yep.
A street tree is simply the tree that is in between the house and the street. Typically, it's the tree well in the sidewalk. Sometimes you have grass strips between the sidewalk and the street. And honestly, it's sometimes in the city, because the city is so weird, there is street, sidewalk, and then still a little sliver of somebody's front yard is technically public right of way, where that would also be considered a street tree. It's just the trees that are lining our streets, which are extremely beneficial. So it was mentioned previously that trees have all these amazing benefits, whether it's heat island, air quality, water quality, all these great benefits. And they really kind of focal around the parks, because there's so many trees in our parks. But the goal of our program is to really kind of just keep spreading them through the city, so we have connecting vectors all through the city of these greenways that are shaded and healthy streetways. So it's just anything along the street and in the sidewalk.
I can't thank Charlie enough for. I could never have said anything as eloquent or as smart as that. So
My answer was really basic, but I think Jan from Facebook would love your answer better than mine. Thank you, Charlie.
No problem. No problem. I've been
Thanks,
doing
Earl,
this for like 14 years. So
yeah. Thanks, Earl, for catching that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, usually the street trees are put between the sidewalk, in that little right of way area between the sidewalk and the curb. Sometimes there's not always a sidewalk, but it's still by the curb, so it's still, considered a street tree or a city, so anything that we can do to improve the tree canopy, we want to put as many trees as we can. But it wouldn't, and some trees are like on Hartford Road, we have a small median and we've got trees there as well.
Street tree defines any tree in the public right of way along the streets. And that, again, in Baltimore, that can be a plethora of different things. If you look at like the parcel inquiry, it's just anything that's in that public right of way along streets that we consider street trees.
Well, I want to, we're at the end of our hour. I want to thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your time and your passion for, our parks and our trees and, this important work that we're doing to improve our city. And so I really, really appreciate, and I appreciate your time coming on here at 8 o'clock at night to talk with us. This will be posted, it'll stay on Facebook Live. We're also going to post it on YouTube, and I'll put it in the newsletter so people can see afterwards this great information about all of our parks, the forestry. This is such great news about forestry being able to have that additional funding. So I don't know when it's going to be announced, but you announced it here, so that's what counts. And that's great. So I really appreciate it. So thanks again for being here, and for those of us everybody participating on Facebook and on Zoom, thanks a lot for your time this evening as well. We will have another town hall next week. We're gonna have the Minority Business Office to talk a little bit about their resources, and then we will take a break for Thanksgiving and then be back the following week. So thanks everybody. Have a great night. Take care.